I need to create a detailed outline for a story about a divorced man's reaction to a late apology from his ex-wife, then write a 4,000-word story following this outline. I'll start by creating the detailed outline. Michael 36 tuổi kể về khoảnh khắc nhận email xin lỗi từ vợ cũ Lisa sau 2 năm ly hôn. Email đến khi anh đang trên chuyến du lịch châu Âu với bạn gái mới, mô tả cảm giác hỗn độn bàng hoàng tò mò nhưng không còn cảm xúc mãnh liệt như trước. Quyết định không trả lời, chỉ đóng email và tiếp tục cuộc sống. Lời kêu gọi hành động. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button if you've ever had to make the difficult choice of leaving the past in the past, and subscribe if you want more real stories about life after divorce. Michael là kỹ sư phần mềm thành đạt mô tả về cuộc gặp gỡ và hẹn hò với Lisa, giáo viên tiểu học. Hôn nhân hạnh phúc 5 năm đầu, mua nhà, du lịch, kế hoạch sinh con. Thay đổi bắt đầu khi Lisa mất việc và trở nên chán nản xa cách. Lisa bắt đầu đổ lỗi cho Michael về mọi vấn đề, trở nên tiêu cực. Phát hiện Lisa ngoại tình với huấn luyện viên thể dục, tin nhắn ảnh bằng chứng không thể chối cãi, đối mặt và phủ nhận. Lisa đổ lỗi cho Michael vì không quan tâm đủ. Quá trình ly hôn đau đớn, Lisa tìm cách chiếm đoạt tài sản, vu khống Michael với bạn bè chung, tổn thương kép, phản bội và bị bôi nhọ danh tiếng. Michael mô tả giai đoạn đen tối. Sau ly hôn, cô đơn, mất niềm tin, tổn thương. Quyết định thay đổi môi trường, đổi công ty, chuyển đến thành phố mới. Quá trình tự chữa lành, trị liệu tâm lý, tập trung vào sự nghiệp, tìm lại đam mê, leo núi. Chơi guitar, kết bạn với nhóm người mới không biết gì về quá khứ của anh, dần lấy lại cân bằng, học cách tin tưởng lại. Gặp Rachel, nhà thiết kế đồ họa, mối quan hệ chậm rãi trung thực từ đầu. Kế hoạch chuyến du lịch châu Âu với Rachel. Bước tiến lớn trong mối quan hệ mới. Michael kể chi tiết về ngày nhận email. Đang ở Rome chuẩn bị đi ăn tối với Rachel. Nội dung email: Lisa thừa nhận sai lầm, hối hận về cách cư xử, muốn giải thích. Tiết lộ cuộc sống của Lisa đã sụp đổ. Mối quan hệ với người tình kết thúc tồi tệ. Phân tích cảm xúc ban đầu: tò mò, muốn biết sự thật phần nhỏ. Muốn sự xác nhận rằng anh đã đúng. Quyết định không trả lời, không muốn kéo quá khứ vào hiện tại đẹp đẽ của mình. Hệ lụy: Lisa liên lạc qua mọi kênh tin nhắn, gọi điện, nhờ bạn chung. Lisa xuất hiện tại công ty cũ của Michael, gây sự chú ý không mong muốn. Bạn bè thúc giục Michael gặp Lisa để kết thúc mọi chuyện. Michael vẫn giữ im lặng, tập trung vào mối quan hệ với Rachel. Sau 3 tháng quấy rầy, Lisa xuất hiện tại nhà Michael không báo trước, mô tả chi tiết cuộc đối mặt Lisa, mong muốn được tha thứ, giải thích, tiết lộ người tình của Lisa đã lừa cô lấy tiền và bỏ đi. Lisa khẳng định đã nhận ra sai lầm, muốn làm lại từ đầu. Michael bình tĩnh nhưng dứt khoát: tôi đã hạnh phúc. Tôi không cần lời xin lỗi hay giải thích của cô. Lisa xúc động cầu xin cơ hội thứ hai. Rachel tình cờ đến và chứng kiến cảnh tượng. Michael giới thiệu Rachel, khẳng định cuộc sống hiện tại của mình. Lisa sốc nhận ra mình đã thật sự mất Michael. Michael yêu, cầu Lisa không liên lạc nữa, tôn trọng quyết định của anh. 1 năm sau, Michael và Rachel đính hôn. Lisa chuyển đi khỏi thành phố, không còn liên lạc, qua bạn chung. Michael biết Lisa đang dần ổn định lại cuộc sống. Michael phản ánh về bài học: đôi khi tha thứ không có nghĩa là phải quay lại. Hiểu biết mới im lặng đôi khi là câu trả lời mạnh mẽ nhất. Tâm thế mới biết rằng hạnh phúc hiện tại là kết quả của việc đóng lại những cánh cửa đã hỏng. Câu kết mở. Sometimes the most powerful response to an apology is silence. Not out of bitterness, but because you've already moved too far forward to look back. What apologies have you received that came too late to matter? Now I'll write the complete 4,000-word story based on this outline. It was our 3rd day in Rome when the email arrived. My girlfriend Rachel and I had just returned from touring the Colosseum, and I was checking messages before our dinner reservation. That is when I saw it, sitting between a work notification and a travel discount offer. I am sorry for everything, from Lisa Hamilton, my ex-wife. After 2 years of silence, she had chosen this moment to reach out. I felt a strange numbness as I opened it, expecting to feel something more dramatic, some echo of the pain that once consumed me. Instead, I scanned the lengthy emotional apology with curious detachment, as if reading about strangers. Without responding, I closed the laptop, took Rachel's hand, and headed to dinner at a small trattoria overlooking the Tiber River. The email remained unanswered, and that decision changed everything that followed. Before I continue with what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button if you have ever had to make the difficult choice of leaving the past in the past, and subscribe if you want more real stories about life after divorce. Now let me take you back to the beginning, so you understand why that unanswered email mattered so much. Lisa and I met at a charity run organized by my company. I was 30 years old, established in my career as a software engineer, and had recently been promoted to project lead at a growing tech firm in Seattle. She was 28, a third-grade teacher with an infectious laugh and a passion for making learning fun for her students. I noticed her immediately, not just because of her bright blue running shirt with Racing for Reading emblazoned across it, but because of how she cheered on struggling participants, offering encouragement to complete strangers. After the race during the community picnic, I worked up the courage to introduce myself. Our conversation flowed easily, jumping from favorite hiking trails to debating the best coffee shops in the city. By the end of the afternoon, I had her number and a plan to meet for drinks the following Friday. Our relationship progressed naturally. We discovered shared interests in outdoor activities, independent films, and trying new restaurants. 6 months in, we were spending most nights together, either at my downtown apartment or her cozy place near the school where she taught. After a year, we moved in together, finding a rental house halfway between our workplaces. The proposal came during a weekend trip to the San Juan Islands. I had arranged a private sunset kayak tour, hiding the ring in a waterproof bag. When we stopped at a secluded cove, I asked her to marry me, as the sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Her joyful tears matched my own as she said yes. We married in a modest ceremony with 80 guests, honeymooned in Costa Rica, and returned to begin what I believed would be our happily ever after. For the first 5 years, it largely was. We bought a 3-bedroom craftsman-style home in a family-friendly neighborhood, took vacations to places on our shared bucket list, and began seriously discussing starting a family. The changes were so gradual I barely noticed them at first. Lisa lost her teaching position when her school faced budget cuts. Though disappointed, she initially remained optimistic, viewing it as an opportunity to perhaps transition to a more specialized role in education. But as months passed with only a few substitute positions, her spirits dimmed. She became increasingly withdrawn, spending days in pajamas and declining invitations to see friends. I tried to be supportive, encouraging her to pursue additional certification that might make her more marketable or consider adjacent career paths. But my suggestions were increasingly met with irritation. "You just do not understand what it is like," she would say. "Your job has always been secure. You have no idea how it feels to be rejected over and over." The distance between us grew. Conversations that once flowed easily became stilted, often ending in silent tension. Intimacy became rare, then practically non-existent. When I would reach for her at night, she would turn away, claiming exhaustion or a headache. I suggested couples counseling. Lisa agreed half-heartedly, but after 2 sessions declared it a waste of time and money. The counselor, she said, clearly favored my perspective and did not understand her struggles. Then came the day that changed everything. I had come home early from work, hoping to surprise Lisa with tickets to a concert by a band she had once loved. The house was quiet, her car in the driveway. Assuming she might be napping, I moved quietly upstairs. The bathroom door was ajar, her phone sitting on the counter chiming with an incoming message. I would not normally have looked, but the preview caught my eye. "Missing you already. Last night was incredible." A sick feeling washed over me. I picked up the phone, the message from someone named Jason. With shaking hands, I opened it, finding months of exchanges. Intimate messages. Photos no married woman should be sending to another man. Plans for their next meeting. Jason, I would soon discover, was her personal trainer at the gym she had started frequenting 3 months earlier, claiming exercise might help her depression. When confronted, Lisa cycled through denial, anger, and finally incredibly blame. If I had been more attentive, more understanding of her emotional needs, she would not have sought comfort elsewhere. If I had not been so focused on my career, she would not have felt neglected. "You pushed me into his arms," she insisted, tears streaming down her face. "I was drowning, and you were too busy to notice." The divorce process was even more painful than discovering the affair. Lisa hired an aggressive attorney who pushed for half of my retirement accounts and savings, despite our relatively short marriage and the fact that I had contributed significantly more to our household finances. She spread rumors among our mutual friends, painting herself as the victim of an emotionally unavailable workaholic husband. Some friends took her side without ever hearing mine. Others tried to remain neutral, but eventually drifted away uncomfortable with being caught in the middle. The double betrayal of infidelity and character assassination left me reeling, questioning my judgment and worth. The divorce was finalized 18 months after that fateful day. I lost the house unwilling to fight for it when it held so many tainted memories. I paid more in the settlement than was likely fair simply to end the process and begin healing. And I lost a significant portion of my social circle collateral damage in the explosion of our marriage. The first 6 months after the divorce were the darkest period of my life. I moved into a sterile one-bedroom apartment that I made no effort to personalize. I threw myself into work, often staying at the office until 9 or 10 at night, then bringing more work home. On weekends, I either continued working or sat in numbed silence streaming shows I barely watched or playing video games that provided temporary distraction. Sleep became elusive. When I did manage to drift off, I would often wake in the early hours, my mind replaying moments from the marriage, searching for signs I had missed. What could I have done differently? Had there been clues about her unhappiness that I had overlooked? Was I truly as emotionally unavailable as she claimed? My older brother Jake, concerned about my isolation, finally intervened with characteristic bluntness. "You look like hell," he told me during an unexpected visit to my apartment. "And this place is depressing. You need to make some changes before you completely disappear into this black hole." His words, harsh but necessary, sparked the beginning of my recovery. I started seeing a therapist specializing in divorce recovery. Dr. Cohen helped me recognize that while I could have been a more attentive husband in some ways, Lisa's actions were her choices, not inevitable responses to my shortcomings. Marriages require honest communication, he emphasized. If she was unhappy, she had options besides infidelity and blame. Those were active choices she made. Gradually, I began rebuilding. I accepted a position with a new company across the country in Boston, seeing the geographical distance as an opportunity for a fresh start. I found an apartment in a vibrant neighborhood and made an effort to furnish it thoughtfully, creating a space that felt genuinely mine. I rediscovered old passions that had fallen by the wayside during my marriage and subsequent depression. I joined a rock climbing gym, started playing guitar again, and signed up for a photography class at a local community center. Each of these activities not only provided enjoyment, but also introduced me to new people who knew nothing about my past. My new colleagues invited me to social gatherings, and I forced myself to accept even when my instinct was to decline. At one such event, a casual happy hour at a brew pub near our office, I met Rachel Crawford. Rachel worked for a design agency that occasionally collaborated with our company. With wavy auburn hair, green eyes that crinkled when she laughed, and a quick sarcastic wit, she immediately stood out. We bonded over a shared love of indie music and a mutual distaste for the pretentiousness of certain craft beers on the menu. Unlike my whirlwind romance with Lisa, my relationship with Rachel developed slowly and deliberately. We exchanged numbers that first night but did not have our first proper date until nearly a month later. Over dinner at a small Thai restaurant, I took a risk and told her about my divorce, wanting transparency from the beginning. "I am still healing," I admitted, "and I am cautious about jumping into anything serious too quickly." Rather than being put off, Rachel appreciated the honesty. "I had a bad breakup 2 years ago," she shared. "Not a marriage, but a 5-year relationship that ended when I caught him cheating. I understand caution. Let's just take this one day at a time and see where it leads." That approach served us well. We saw each other once or twice a week at first, gradually increasing our time together as comfort and trust grew. 6 months in, we were in a committed relationship, though we maintained separate apartments. After a year, we began discussing future plans, including the possibility of eventually living together. When Rachel suggested a 2-week trip to Italy and France to celebrate our first anniversary, it felt like the right next step. It would be our first major vacation together, a chance to create important memories and strengthen our bond outside the routines of daily life. I never imagined that trip would also bring my past crashing back into my carefully reconstructed present. The email from Lisa arrived on our 3rd day in Rome. The subject line was simple but loaded. "I am sorry for everything." My thumb hovered over it on my phone for several seconds before I opened it, curious, despite myself. "Dear Michael," it began. I have started this email 100 times over the past year, never finding the right words or the courage to send it. I do not expect forgiveness or even a response. I just need you to know how deeply sorry I am for the pain I caused you. The person I became during our divorce is someone I do not recognize or like. The lies I told, the ways I tried to hurt you, the things I said to our friends, all of it was wrong. There is no excuse, though. At the time, I was desperate to find one to justify my behavior. The truth is simpler and harder. I made terrible choices that hurt a good man who did not deserve any of it. Jason and I lasted 6 months after the divorce. He was not who I thought he was. He took advantage of my vulnerability and insecurity, then moved on when someone younger caught his eye. The irony is not lost on me that I destroyed our marriage for something so meaningless. I have been in therapy for the past year, trying to understand why I sabotaged the best relationship I ever had. The truth is that I was deeply unhappy with myself, not with you. When I lost my teaching job, I lost my identity. Instead of working through that with you, I blamed you for not fixing it for me. I know it is too late to repair what we had. I just want you to know that I recognize the harm I caused, that I am trying to become a better person, and that not a day goes by that I do not regret my actions. You deserved so much better. If you ever feel ready to talk, I would welcome the chance to apologize properly in person. My number is the same. With sincere regret, Lisa. I read it twice, waiting for the emotional impact to hit me. The old Michael would have felt vindicated by her admission of wrongdoing, perhaps even secretly pleased by the karma of Jason's betrayal. The old Michael might have felt a surge of residual love, or at least nostalgia, might have been tempted to respond. Instead, I felt curiously detached. Her words acknowledged truths I had already come to terms with through therapy and time. Her regrets changed nothing about our past or my present. And most importantly, I realized I had no desire to reopen that chapter of my life, even for the closure of a final conversation. I closed the email, put my phone away, and turned to Rachel, who was brushing her hair before dinner. "Everything okay?" she asked, noticing my expression. "Just an unexpected email," I replied honestly. "Nothing important. Ready for dinner? I heard this place makes amazing carbonara." That night, as we dined on a terrace overlooking the ancient city, I made a conscious decision to leave the email unanswered. Lisa's need for forgiveness was her journey, not my responsibility. My journey was forward with the remarkable woman across the table from me, not backward into painful history. The remainder of our European trip was wonderful. We wandered the streets of Florence, took a cooking class in Tuscany, and explored the coastline of southern France. I thought of Lisa's email occasionally, but with increasing infrequency as the days passed. Upon returning home, however, the situation escalated. Lisa, having received no response to her email, began reaching out through other channels. Text messages arrived from her number, and from unknown ones she had presumably borrowed from friends. Voicemails accumulated, her voice progressing from apologetic to increasingly desperate. "Michael, please just talk to me. I understand if you hate me, but I need to know you have seen my apology. I saw your vacation photos on social media. She seems nice. I am happy for you. I still wish we could talk. Why are you punishing me with silence? All I am asking for is 5 minutes of your time." I blocked her number after the third voicemail, but she persisted, reaching out through mutual friends. Some were sympathetic to her, suggesting I grant her the conversation she sought. "She seems genuinely remorseful," said my old college roommate David, who had remained friendly with both of us. "Maybe talking would help you both move on completely." "I have moved on," I explained. "That is precisely why I do not see the point in revisiting the past." The most surprising intervention came from Lisa herself, who showed up at my former workplace, not realizing I had relocated across the country. My old colleague Jamie texted to let me know. "Your ex-wife is here asking for you. Seems pretty upset." "What should I tell her?" I asked Jamie to simply inform Lisa that I no longer worked there and provide no additional information about my whereabouts. The incident troubled me, suggesting an escalation I had not anticipated. I debated whether to reach out directly and firmly request she stop attempting contact, but worried that any response might only encourage further communication. Instead, I maintained my silence, focusing on my relationship with Rachel, which continued to deepen. We had begun tentatively discussing the possibility of her moving into my apartment when her lease ended in 3 months. The thought filled me with both excitement and a lingering anxiety, remnants of my failed marriage. Rachel, perceptive as always, noticed my occasional distraction. One evening as we cooked dinner together in my kitchen, she gently pressed for answers. "Something has been bothering you since we got back from Europe," she observed, chopping vegetables with precise movements. "Is it work, stress, or something else?" I hesitated, then decided complete honesty was the only foundation for a healthy relationship. I told her about Lisa's email and the subsequent attempts at contact. "Why have not you told me about this?" she asked, setting down her knife. "Because it is not important," I replied. "It is just noise from a past I have moved beyond." Rachel studied my face carefully. "Are you sure? Because it is okay if you need closure with her. I would understand." "That is just it," I explained. "I do not need it." The closure happened long before her apology, when I accepted that the marriage was over and began rebuilding my life. Her need for forgiveness is about her healing, not mine. Rachel nodded slowly. "I think I understand. But if you change your mind, or if her behavior escalates further, promise you will tell me. We are partners now. Your problems are my problems." I promised, grateful for her understanding and support. Little did I know how soon that promise would be tested. The confrontation I had been avoiding for months arrived on a rainy Saturday afternoon in October, 3 months after Lisa's initial email. Rachel and I had spent the morning at a farmer's market, returning to my apartment, laden with fresh produce and artisan bread for the dinner party we were hosting that evening. We had just begun unpacking our purchases when the doorbell rang. Assuming it was the early arrival of one of our dinner guests, I opened the door without checking the peephole, a decision I immediately regretted. Lisa stood in the hallway, her hair damp from the rain, her expression a mixture of determination and uncertainty. The shock of seeing her in person after more than 2 years rendered me momentarily speechless. "Please do not close the door," she said quickly, recognizing my instinct to do exactly that. "I know I should not have come, but you left me no choice. I just need 5 minutes of your time." From the kitchen I heard Rachel call, "Who is it, Michael?" "It is Lisa," I replied, loud enough for Rachel to hear but not taking my eyes off my ex-wife. "My ex-wife," I added unnecessarily. "Oh," came Rachel's voice closer now as she approached. "Should I give you some privacy?" Before I could respond, Lisa spoke again. "I did not know you had company. I am sorry for the intrusion. But please, Michael, after all we meant to each other, can we just talk briefly?" I felt Rachel's presence beside me, her hand lightly touching my back in silent support. "You can have your conversation," she said calmly. "I can run to the store for the wine we forgot." I shook my head. "That is not necessary." I turned back to Lisa. "You can say what you came to say, but then you need to leave. And after today, no more attempts to contact me. Is that clear?" Lisa nodded, visible relief crossing her face as I stepped back to allow her entry. The three of us stood awkwardly in my living room, the tension palpable. "This is Rachel," I said, making the introduction I had never imagined would be necessary. "Rachel, this is Lisa." "It is nice to meet you," Rachel said politely, though her body language remained protective, positioned slightly between Lisa and me. Likewise, Lisa replied, clearly thrown by Rachel's presence. She turned back to me. "I would prefer to speak privately if possible." "Anything you have to say can be said in front of Rachel," I replied firmly. "We do not have secrets." Lisa's expression tightened, but she nodded. "Fine. I came because you ignored my email, my calls, everything. I needed to see you face to face to make sure you understand how sorry I am for what happened between us. I read your email," I confirmed. "I understood it. I chose not to respond." "But why?" Her voice cracked with emotion. "Do not I deserve at least the courtesy of acknowledgement after 5 years together?" I felt a flare of anger quickly suppressed. "Courtesy? Like the courtesy you showed when you cheated on me, or when you tried to take half my retirement savings, or when you told our friends I was emotionally abusive." She flinched at each accusation. "I was wrong. So wrong. About everything. Jason, he was not who I thought. He used me, then left me for someone else. He even took money from me, claiming it was for a business investment. I lost nearly everything. There was a time when her pain would have moved me, when I would have felt compelled to comfort her despite everything. That time had passed. I am sorry you experienced that," I said evenly, "but your relationship problems with Jason are not my concern. That is not why I am here," she insisted. "I am here because I have had 2 years to reflect on who I was during our marriage and the divorce. The things I did, the person I became, it haunts me. I need your forgiveness to move forward." And that is exactly the problem, Lisa. You are still thinking about what you need, not what I might need. What I need is to live my life without being pulled back into our past. I have forgiven you, but that forgiveness is for my benefit, not yours. It does not require a relationship or even a conversation. Rachel had remained silent during this exchange, but I felt her quiet strength beside me, bolstering my resolve. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. I thought if you saw me, if we could just talk properly, maybe. Maybe we could at least be friends. We were good together once before everything went wrong. We were, I agreed. But that chapter is closed now. I have a new life, one I am happy with. I wish you well, I truly do, but I do not want or need you in my life anymore. She looked at Rachel then, as if seeing her clearly for the first time. Are you too serious? She asked, her voice small. Yes, Rachel answered before I could, her tone gentle but firm. We are. Lisa nodded slowly, reality settling visibly on her shoulders. I see. I really have lost you completely, have not I? You lost me the day you betrayed our vows, I replied, not unkindly. Everything since then has simply been me finding my way forward. I should go, Lisa said, gathering what dignity she could. Thank you for at least hearing me out. I will not bother you again. As I showed her to the door, she paused on the threshold. I hope she makes you happier than I did, she said softly. You deserve that. I am already happier, I replied honestly. Goodbye, Lisa. After she left, Rachel and I stood in silence for a moment. Then she wrapped her arms around me, holding me close. Are you okay? She murmured against my chest. Surprisingly, yes, I replied, realizing it was true. The encounter had been uncomfortable but not devastating. I had faced my past and found it had lost its power over me. She still has feelings for you, Rachel observed. Maybe I agreed. Or maybe she just wants what she can no longer have. Either way, it does not change anything for me. My future is here with you. 1 year later, Rachel and I were engaged, planning a small ceremony for the following spring. We had moved in together, finding a spacious 2-bedroom apartment with a view of the Charles River. Our life together was not perfect, but it was honest, supportive, and filled with mutual respect, everything my marriage to Lisa had lacked in its final days. I heard from David that Lisa had finally moved away from Seattle, taking a teaching position in Colorado. She had stopped asking about me, apparently having accepted the finality of my silence. Through social media, I occasionally glimpsed updates suggesting she was rebuilding her life, focusing on her career, and forming new friendships. I wished her well from a distance, without any desire to reconnect. The experience taught me something valuable about forgiveness and closure. For years, popular wisdom had suggested that proper closure required a final conversation, an opportunity to air grievances and hear apologies. My experience proved otherwise. Sometimes true closure comes not from more words, but from the decision to stop engaging entirely, to redirect your energy toward the future rather than the past. The silence that Lisa interpreted as punishment was actually liberation for both of us. My non-response forced her to find closure within herself rather than seeking it from me, and it allowed me to maintain the boundaries necessary for my new life to flourish without the complications of past entanglements. That is not to say ignoring an ex-partner is always the right choice. In some situations, particularly where children are involved or mutual friends, must be navigated, some level of communication may be necessary. But in my case, with a clean break and a fresh start in a new city, silence was the kindest response for everyone involved. Rachel understood this instinctively, never pressing me to provide Lisa with the conversation she sought. Your boundaries are valid, she assured me during one of our early discussions about the situation. You do not owe anyone access to your life or your emotions regardless of your history together. That validation was one of many reasons I knew Rachel was the right partner for me. Unlike Lisa, who had often made me feel selfish for having needs or boundaries, Rachel respected my autonomy while offering support. As we planned our future together, I occasionally reflected on the journey that had brought me to this point. The pain of betrayal and divorce had been excruciating, but without those experiences, I might never have recognized the value of a truly healthy relationship. Sometimes the most painful chapters of our lives are necessary precursors to our happiest ones. Lisa's apology came too late to save our marriage, but perhaps it came at exactly the right time to confirm that I had made the right choice in moving forward without looking back. Her reappearance in my life, and my reaction to it, provided the final assurance that my healing was complete. Sometimes the most powerful response to an apology is silence. Not out of bitterness, but because you have already moved too far forward to look back. Have you ever received an apology that came too late to matter? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more authentic stories about finding peace after difficult relationships. And if you know someone struggling to move forward after divorce, share this video with them. Thank you for watching, and remember that sometimes the greatest act of self-care is simply refusing to engage with people or situations that no longer serve your happiness.